Would Elden Ring spears work as actual weapons? I'm gonna be honest with you, the answer is yes to a lot of these. You see, spears and polearms in general were really good throughout history because if you put something that can cut or bonk things or stab things on the end of a long stick, as long as that thing's not too heavy, it's going to both put a lot of distance between you and your opponent and also transfer a lot of force because it's a long lever and physics and stuff. And pretty much all of the Elden Ring weapons do that. However, there are some really interesting designs here that I want to break down. The short spear, yes, it's a spear that's pretty short. You could weight it so that way it works as a javelin as well as a spear. You could use it for hunting, you could use it for close quarters. It wouldn't really be the best in formation combat because, it's not long and other people would have longer spears. So they could poke you before you could poke them. The iron spear is also a pretty basic spear. I find it kind of weird that they specify that it's iron though. Weirdly enough, the regular spear is where things start to get a little weird. Not like weird, just a bit untraditional. Because this one has a crossguard on it which would help keep you from getting stabbed a little bit more. And traditionally that sort of thing was reserved for kind of higher budget spears, but it works. The pike is by definition a long spear, and this is a long spear. They were really popular in war, and some Renaissance duelists even preferred using them. One-on-one in duels. Pretty neat. The spiked spear is really interesting because it looks a lot like a Dutch Goedendag, which is also called a staff spear. It's pretty much a predominantly club weapon. You bonk things with it. But it also has a spear tip for spearing things. So how you can use a regular spear as a quarterstaff and hit things with it, but the spiky end is the primary? With this one, the bludgeoning is the primary, and the spiky bit is secondary. And there are some spikes on the side that would hurt. The cross naginata is another polearm. It's pretty much a Japanese-style glaive, although the crossguard on it is kind of a bit more similar to what the Japanese yari sometimes had. Those weapons are designed really interestingly because you can just take the blade off and put it on a different handle. Take out your wakizashi, take out the blade, put it on a longer hilt, and then you've got a naginata. Pretty neat. The clayman's harpoon looks like an improvised harpoon type thing, although it specifies that it's made of meteorite iron, or just meteorites. But interestingly, that wasn't an unheard of way of getting iron in the historic periods. If you see where a meteor lands, then that's just free iron that you can pick up without needing to dig, as long as you process it correctly. The celebrant's rib rake looks like a big back scratcher, and you could swing and hit things with the spikes, but the spikes aren't too big. This wouldn't be too effective, but it's still a sharp thing on a stick. Torchpole, you get this. I don't have to explain this to you. It can set things on fire, maybe, and you can hit things. The inquisitor's girandole, it's pretty much a spiky trident. I don't really understand the spikes on the side because when are those going to come in contact with an opponent? You're just thrusting with it. I skipped the partisan, sorry. And these were historically a polearm that kind of had some spikes on the side going up. Kind of like a crossguard, but also adding more thrust surface area. Generally, those were a bit more curved up than this one is, but it's still a partisan. And the crystal spear has things that are pointing up, so it's kind of more of a partisan than the actual partisan. And the rotten crystal spear too. Cleanrot spear, also a partisan. Editing Marcus here. I forgot to talk about that shield on there, and guards kind of like that on polearms was rare, but it did happen. That low on the polearm. The death ritual spear is kind of like an unorthodox small trident at first, but it would hurt more going in. Theoretically, I think that's what they're going for, but in reality, the target would probably stop getting penetrated when it reaches these things, so you wouldn't really have a chance for those other spikes to do too much. They would make your thrust a little bit more lethal because you could just redirect as it's going past and it might catch something. And is this a Neon Genesis Evangelion reference? It's a cool idea. 2 prongs going into something would hurt them. It looks like it's kind of falling apart though. But I mean, it's probably super strong. And I only have a few more weapons classes of Elden Ring to cover, so what franchise do you think I should cover next?